Hey guys, hope you are all having a great morning today. One of the things I have seen many people wondering in online forums and even personally is how inflation affects healthcare. As we all know, prices for things like gas, food, and housing have all blown up out of control last year, and the Fed still doesn't know how to even tackle this problem, which is why many economists and analysts believe inflation is going to continue to grow for the next couple of months. America has a huge problem with its healthcare system, which is one of the most draconian systems in the entire country. Many are rightfully worried about what these new levels of inflation mean for the overall economy and if they will find prices for healthcare and premiums going up, or if they can expect prices to remain leveled as they have been. Today I am going to try to tackle this issue with some statistics from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is an incredibly difficult topic to address, because honestly, anything can happen, but I believe that the data available to us right now can give us an objectively correct measure of what to expect for the next few months from the healthcare system as we continue to combat the devastation that inflation will have on our lives. I sound like a broken record, but come join my Discord. So many people have joined and we are all having fun and discussing all kinds of theories and analysis on meme stocks, the markets and everything in between. Links will be in the video description and in a pinned comment. Before we start, let me quickly state that I am not a financial advisor, and that all content discussed in this channel is simply information gathered that I deem important for people to know, so that they can make informed decisions. All efforts are aimed to better understand the nature of the current market in anticipation of the greatest squeeze in financial history. Let's dive right in. Again, I am going to begin talking about the basics from the assumption that you are new to these topics so that we can all be on the same point. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports high inflation, but a very notable omission from it in the list of drivers is healthcare. Expenditures for healthcare grow every 1 year, around 4% on average. The US government expects these expenditures to actually grow to 5% between now and 2028. In fact, national health expenditures are expected to increase from accounting for 18.2% of the gross domestic product to 19.7% between now and 2028. This growth in percentage for the GDP means one thing: the healthcare sector of the economy is growing at a fast rate, at least faster than the overall economy, and sustainability of it will be a serious cause for concern for everyone living in the country. The Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, which is a measure that changes in the price of a basket of goods and services purchased by urban consumers, showed that healthcare services, which include services such as physician, dental, eye and other services provided by medical professionals, had a dramatic bump in March of 2021. In fact, it wasn't even only medical care services, but hospital and related services such as inpatient hospital services, outpatient hospital services, nursing home and adult daycare among many others also saw a significant growth around March of 2021. Obviously, this growth, which doubled the annual trend in just 3 months, is directly related to the onset of the pandemic. So the question becomes, how do these trends in inflation impact healthcare and its beneficiaries? Well, the good news is that Consumer Price Index reflects changes in price paid by consumers. Healthcare trends are much more complex than just price points, because they have a lot of components that don't necessarily get as easily affected by changes in prices. There are 4 main components in healthcare trends, which are utilization, average unit cost, population and benefits. Utilization reflects changes in consumption due to external influences like catastrophes, geographical access and new prescription drugs among many others. Then there are average unit costs, which is the trend that shows the changes in the paid amount of services to hospitals, physicians, pharmacies and other providers. This trend is primarily driven by changes in provider contracts, and reflects a mix of services depending on treatment pattern changes. The next trend is population, which reflects changes in morbidity and is influenced by variables like aging or adverse selection of premium ration actions. The last trend are benefits, which can be the cost sharing that create financial incentives to seek treatment or the health plans that use cost sharing to steer care toward cost-effective treatments. As you can see, in these 4 trends, they are all subject to changes brought by the price index, but an important thing to note is that there will be a lag between inflationary changes and healthcare trends. This is the main reason why inflation has had such a limited impact on healthcare overall in contrast to things like gas or food. Let's take a closer look into it though. We know that the medical sector overall, which includes hospitals and the physicians that work in them as well as pharmacies, all have contractual arrangements with healthcare plans that detail the terms for the costs of care and all the fees that exist. These contracts, for the most part, renew annually, and each year, the costs of inflation can be reflected in them. However, one big part that people forget is that these contracts are also linked to the government, with the first that comes to mind being agencies for government-sponsored healthcare like Medicare and Medicaid. Providers have contracts that pay as a discount off the total bill, and oftentimes they can increase chargemasters, which is a list of prices for services. Higher chargemaster results in higher rates of reimbursement, and because of this, we have seen the effects of inflation been softened. However, just because we have seen inflation not be reflected in hospital bills too notably during the last 2 years doesn't mean things will remain the same. Businesses have capital needs and high costs of operations. Providers face pressures imposed by inflation just like any other business out there, and their ability to pass on these extra costs imposed by higher prices onto consumers has been limited by the contracts they are forced to sign. Because contracts may have longer terms signed into them, providers may not be able to get higher reimbursement rates until the next renewal. Inflation has an impact on the higher healthcare trends we have seen, but the impact is not felt immediately. I believe that as time goes by, the costs of high inflation are slowly going to be grown and passed on to consumers. It's just a matter of timing. We have seen inflation reflect on our credit card statements because the changes have been so sudden, but due to contractual obligations, healthcare has been able to soften the blow of inflation, but this does not mean that they too won't be rising. As facts show, healthcare expenditures are expected to rise faster than the nation's GDP. One thing that has not necessarily been delayed too much by inflation are the prescription drug prices, which are rising faster than any other medical good or service. With this issue in particular, the driving mechanism that has caused prices to increase rapidly is the opaque pricing structure. Patients at the counters of your local CVS and at the hospital rarely even know the costs of their medications or procedures before the treatment. It is only after the fact that they get the treatment and are handed ridiculous bills that they start comparing prices online and see that they got tricked into paying a high price. They are not afforded the availability to shop for lower cost services or ask medical staff about similar but cheaper medications. They are simply given a medicine and they have to go and figure out how to buy it. Our healthcare system isn't normal by any standard, and stands out like a sore thumb in comparison to every other developed nation in the world, and the sad truth is that inflation is slowly going to creep up for all patients that have the misfortune of getting sick or hurt and end up at a hospital. My prediction is that over time, insurance companies will be the first ones to begin using their leverage and power to start limiting provider reimbursements, which is how impact of inflation has been softened and limited so far. That will begin paving the way for newer solutions, and the change will be incredibly hurtful for people, because you can 100% guarantee they are coming after your wallet. The government will continue to limit costs by keeping Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements flat, with the 1 to 2% increase per year, but that won't be nearly enough. Businesses are businesses and will operate to grow revenue as much as possible, and since they have been unable to pass down the costs of inflation for so long, the changes they will begin implementing on the contracts will be drastic in my opinion. They will want to make up for losses and more, and on their sites, they will target the private sector more than anything else. One of the primary things I see them doing is seeking to cut down or limit expenditures by curtailing procedures that they have typically always reimbursed, and when they do this, it means that hospitals are going to start seeing decreased revenue. At this point, it is very difficult to tell how things will go, because the government is going to have to intervene at some point and because it depends on the severity of the problem, which will most likely be weighed down by the amount of sick patients there are at the given time. Say a new variant comes out while insurance companies begin these new changes in structures for the contracts, and hospitals get filled up with patients. The government is going to have a very different approach to that situation in comparison to one where the amount of patients is going back down and stabilizing. Because of the unpredictability of this, I can't say with certainty what step the government will take, but I can reassure you that it will just be a patch to try to stop the ship from leaking, instead of actually addressing the problem. I know this topic was a bit different than previous ones. We have discussed the healthcare industry before with the intention of demonstrating the hand of Wall Street in it and how they have lowered quality care while blowing up prices for massive profits. This week I have wanted to talk about inflation and the ways it will affect different parts of the economy. If you enjoyed this topic, I highly recommend you go watch some of my previous videos. You can bet that Wall Street-backed insurance companies are going to be coming for their fill and will not rest until they have scavenged every inch of what they can get. Inflation has turned them incredibly bloodthirsty, and with all statistics showing healthcare industry growing faster than the GDP for years to come, you already know who it is that is causing this to happen and why. I hope to have inspired a couple of wrinkles in this video, and I really hope you take a moment to let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video and what your thoughts are. Don't just click off. Do leave me a comment with your opinions as to the matter or as to whether you liked this type of video or not. For the love of tendies, join my Discord already, I promise you a good time in it. I have a Patreon link in the description as well as some one-time donation links for Cash App and PayPal. Thank you again for being a part of this channel. I will continue striving for better content. Hope you keep having a great day and I hope to see you later today on the recap video. Until then, keep on buying the dip into the moon.